Hello there. Well, we have the Phish show from Albany, New York at the Pepsi Arena, also known as the Nick. And it took place on September 9th, 2000, not long before they took a break, known as the hiatus. I don't know why I'm talking in this cadence, but we will just get started at the top of the show, which was Possum. All right, let's get out of that. Let's get out of that movement here now. We're not some kind of robot quarterback, are we? Or are we? Dun, 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 dun. So the Possum opener. Now, obviously, maybe you might know by now if you've watched a few videos. You know, I'm not a huge Possum fan, but if they are going to play Possum early on in the show, I do appreciate it much more. It's just those late show Possums. Kind of been there, done that. Even I've been to several shows in person where you get that late show Possum. And while it's, normally comes through, it's certainly a song that they are fine and dandy at playing at. It's just we've heard it a lot. Sometimes it has a little extra, but it's never anything too incredibly special. And then my friend up next. Now, while this one here may not have been anything too incredibly special, it was just a bit special. Now, compared to now, where you get a full-blown my friend jam at the tail end of this song, this was more or less just an unfinished my friend. Got into just sort of some sound that led us into Gumbo. It was labeled as a jam. Maybe depending on where you look, the jam could have just been on its own. It could have been labeled a My Friend jam. I'm not sure if it was really, though. It was really just a My Friend, an unfinished My Friend with a real weird ending going into Gumbo. Now, if the Possum kind of just ripped and got things going, overall, the kind of feel of this show was very laid back and very laid back, smooth, kind of chill environment. It felt like there was what the tone they were setting. But then every now and then they'd smack you in the face. Like, you got a maze coming up here in a minute. Like I said, they opened with the Possum. My friend is somewhere in between. While it may not have this crazy tempo of a possum or a maze, it's really not chill. It's kind of intense, really. The jam, like I mentioned, that wasn't really a jam, falls more into the I don't know. But then this Gumbo, really, it was so laid back and relaxed at points the crowd kind of looked like this. So maybe the band realized, all right, we pushed it a little too far, okay? We got to go something here. They pulled out Maze, and it was a Page and Trey show. John Fishman, of course. Now, and I should also mention the stage setup. There is video of this. Mr. Marmar producing the video here for us on YouTube. Producing the video sounds a little weird. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? It's on his channel, Mr. Marmar, that is. Lots of good Phish goodies on there, including this show, September 9th, 2000, Albany, New York, the Pepsi Arena. So they were, the Maze, it was just pretty much a fire show. Like I said, the Gumbo was way chill. I mean, a very good Gumbo, but once they found like if this Maze is somewhere around a 9.5, or if a normal Maze is, even this Maze felt like, this wasn't a 9.5, really. If something summer of 94 is a 9.5 or a 10, this Maze is an 8. That Gumbo was somewhere around a 3. But still very good, if I'm saying things are just kind of chill and laid back and very just calm and smooth and quiet. It's not a bad thing, really, but that was just sort of the setting. And look, I've heard that leading up to the hiatus, they were just completely running on fumes. They had about a month to go, probably another, maybe 18 to 20 shows after this one, roughly. They were probably already starting to run out of gas. And again, not that it was a bad show. It was actually a very good show. A bit of a hidden gem, maybe, from the year 2000. I know there's lots of hooting and hollering about a show or two in that final week, as long as around back at the beginning of July in 2000. So let's get on beyond this Maze. And while the Maze was a bit of a burner, the crowd certainly really into the Maze. It was if the Gumbo was low energy, the Maze was not. All right, so let's just move on beyond that. So then we get into Boogie On. Now, Boogie On takes us kind of back to where we were with the Gumbo. Again, very just, and we're going to get more of it later to come in the Jibboo. Just a very laid back. They lock into the Boogie On vibe, and they just stay with it, and then they ride that sucker out. And it kind of has a bit of an abrupt ending. I believe it was the Boogie On that had the abrupt ending. Maybe a couple of songs, and then they go into Roggae. Now, I don't know how many times they did a Roggae Boogie On or a Boogie On Roggae, but seeing Roggae and reggae, the words themselves on a set list, it just seems like a natural. How did that never come to them? They're playing Boogie On and they think of Roggae. It's like if they had a song Joe, perhaps they would think of Roggae. I don't know, but it worked out on this night. And then again, the Boogie On again, nearly a 5. If a Type 1 Boogie On can get a 5-star or an A score, then this one certainly did. And if not, it's right there at the top of tier 2. Depends. Some people Type 1 can certainly be a 5-star. Calm down over there. What are we talking about here? Now, the Roggae was a sharp Roggae, very solid all around. There was a moment there where it felt like maybe they were drifting off a little bit. Paige was maybe trying to take them into a different direction. Again, very peaceful, very quiet, like you would kind of expect from Roggae. Then it comes kind of thundering back in, that big part. We got that. But then really, the Guyute followed the Roggae. The Roggae might have been where this was a pretty great set leading up to this. Very good, anyhow. If not, upper-ish. It was close. Then the Guyute, maybe it was like Trey spends a little too much time. He had some extra gadgets. He had his little keyboard set up there and plenty of pedals and things. He just got a little too carried away with the effects and rather than just sticking to Guyute and playing it. He tried to get a little too cute. We got a Mr. Fancy Pants makes an appearance later on with a trumpet. And then the Run Like an Antelope, it was, I would like to say it was just a pretty much a ho-hum, okay, average Antelope. And then it just builds to a monster peak rather rapidly. And then Tom Marshall makes an appearance. Tom Marshall comes out and does the vocal part. I believe there was, the spoken word Tom Marshall ending the set. So we got a few animals in there, possum, a pig, and an antelope. Anything else? Some gumbo. All right. So what was the highlight of the first set? Probably the gumbo and the Roggae, Boogie On Reggae Woman, Maze, a lot of stuff really. Guyute wasn't bad. It just, it could, as the way the set was going, I just feel like, if you see the video, you'll see Trey's preoccupied. Just play the song, man. All right, so now let's move over to set 2. We get another guest, Tom Marshall. Tom Marshall doesn't really feel like a guest, though, he's a different kind of guest. He is a guest. He's not in the band, but he's not a guest like Michael Ray, the trumpet player, who joins us later here in the second set. We started out with Gotta Jibboo. Pretty much just rinse and repeat what we had with Gumbo and Roggae and Boogie On Reggae Woman. They lock into the song. They stay Type 1. They just ride it at about a 3, but an excellent one. Very much, it's kind of a very much a marijuana show, perhaps. I don't know. And then, but the Gotta Jibboo does build and rise and rise and rise. And then, wham, once they hit the top, the Gotta Jibboo is really rolling. Gives way to the curtain. No width in the curtain. The crowd really fired up for the curtain. Turned into a bit of a sing-along. I think we had some clapping at one point. Maybe that was reserved for Sand. So then this is where Michael Ray comes out on trumpet. Now, he was part trumpet player, part just entertainer, dancer. I mean, he had some moves. He was kind of dressed almost in like one of them chiefs down in New Orleans, if you can imagine that. It seemed like quite an eccentric fella. And so they get going on Sand. There was times when maybe he didn't feel like I didn't know if he didn't want to overstep his grounds. He didn't know where to jump in. The dance moves would tell you that he was really enjoying the Sand. And while it was a rather funky Sand, the Jibboo and Sand highlighting the second set, finally he does chime in with the trumpet. And then toward the end, he just comes through with first tube. He's nailing first tube as they are wrapping up Sand. They go into Makisupa Policeman. Perhaps a bit of a racist statement from Trey going into some reggae, because he didn't appear to know Makisupa or what to do with it. He quickly put the trumpet down. Then we get into Cars, Trucks, and Buses and Funky Biatch, and he really seemed to know what to do there. With the instrumental Cars, Trucks, and Buses, the trumpet was going off. The band seemed to enjoy that. Funky Bitch the same way. Mike really pleased what was going on. I'm trying to spit out here. Hold on a second. Let me clear my throat. So we got Mike seemed very excited. I was very excited about this. I'm not a big fan, little Cars, Trucks, and Buses. I am. I like all the instrumentals almost, and they just dash them in occasionally. Now Funky Bee, we get a lot of that, Sometimes you just want to kick that biatch right out the door. But then tonight we got a trumpet. It kind of lifted Mike to another level. Then we're done with the set. Cavern ending the set appropriately. It felt like if a Possum felt like a bit of an old school opener, Cavern felt like a bit of an old school closer. And even though this was the year 2000. Nothing old school about it. Although now it kind of is. I'm confused what era we're in. Oh, Harry Hood. We were not done with old Michael Ray. You got to check out the video on Mr. Marmar's channel, these dance moves. Now, the trumpet did come through toward the end. You know, he didn't know really what to do with Makisupa. Swag being the key word in Makisupa, of course. And then Harry Hood, while we got a bit of a shorter second set, I think they were just ready to get that guy the hell out of there. He thought he was in the band at this point. So they called it quits quick early in the second set, only to get a bit of an extended and very cool Harry Hood encore. Now, I think I have said way too much about this show. I do feel like it's a bit of a hidden gem, though. Probably not a lot of people talking about this show in the 2025 time frame of space and time, the universe. All right. So what have we learned? Komodo dragons, are they venomous? Do they have disgusting mouths? Or does their prey just jump in a pond of poo and get infected? We don't know. We didn't learn that from this show, though. Hold on. That was something else I watched. Black holes, do we live inside one? That was yet another show. All right, well, this was the Phish show I watched. We learned that Michael Ray's dance moves are just as good, if not better, than his trumpet playing. We learned that he's not a fan of reggae, that he does love instrumental Phish. He's a big First Tube fan. You know, Trey and the guys very chill leading into their final month into the hiatus. Running on empty, the P-Fish. All right, this is way too long, man. This is insane. But I don't want to go. I still feel like I have more to say. Did I say it? I mentioned it was at the... All right, goodbye. Boom. Thank you. Man, no wonder.